Relationships in the call center workplace have advantages and disadvantages. But the question is it worth it, or are you willing to accept the consequences if things don't work out? In this week's Valentine's Edition video episode, I'm going to present the good, the bad, and the ugly possibilities of work plus love in the workplace.
Hi there, Ninja! Welcome back to my channel. My name is Rhea and you're watching Call Center Ninja. I share real stories and tips to enjoy and survive your call center lifestyle. And this is the 5th episode of Ninja Talks. So just a big disclaimer before we start, I am not in any way a love guru or a love expert. I'm just merely presenting the good, the bad, and the ugly. So if you have your own opinion about these things, then by all means, I highly respect that. Number 1, you just find someone who gets you. So it's very encouraging to work in a place where you know someone just understands the pressures of your work, someone understands why you are working at night, why you need to sleep a little longer, or why you choose to sleep in or to stay at home during weekend because you want to catch up with your sleep or something like that. So it's like a collaboration between the two of you. You understand each other because you can talk about what's going on at work, and in return, both of you will have a common ground, or you have a common denominator, and it will just lead to a better understanding of each other. So there, it's a good thing. And then number 2, you have what they call an RTW, or a reason to work. Diba? Just imagine the call center industry can be very toxic, and the schedules can also be very, very, it can change a lot from time to time. So when that happens, at least you have a reason to work. You are excited, you are motivated, and you know that when you wake up, you are going to work and you're going to meet that special person or special someone in your life. So at least you are more alert or more active when it comes to working. And of course, that leads to number 3, which is excitement and safety. So when I say excitement, that tends to lead to good performance because you are going to do your best and be the best version of yourself, not just for yourself, but also for the other person. And you will make more effort to be confident and to look good, not just for yourself, but also for that other person. It's not such a bad thing, right? And aside from that, can also eventually lead to good performance. And safety, because you know how in this world right now you can meet a lot of people, and when you know that someone is just working in the same place, you feel safe because you already know that person, and your friends and your teammates know that person. So you are confident that you know the whereabouts of that person, and both of you are also confident that you will get to know each other better because you just work in the same place. So bottom line is, you're going to be excited, you have a reason to work, you have a reason to wake up every night before going to work, and you will look your best and you will be the best version of yourself. So it's such a good thing to be in the same workplace with your special someone. I guess the first one is just a mild one. So sometimes when you are with your special someone in the workplace, there is just no room for other friendships to grow because you're always together. You go to lunch break, you go home together, you go to work together. It's not totally a bad thing, but you know, even though you are in a relationship, it's also best to be friends with other people, because you have to admit that you're not going to be with your partner all the time. So looking or finding other good friends can also help with the relationship. So it can be a bad thing if that's the case, like there's no room for other friendships to grow. And then the second one is or can be a little bit more complicated, and this is very common. So what if you guys decided to end your relationship, right? It can be such a bad thing because somehow you will be forced still to go to work, even though you just had your breakup or you just had a big argument or a big fight or even petty fights. It can still affect your relationship. Now, when you go to work, it can be awkward, or there can be a what they call an unhealthy energy that can affect your team, the environment in the workplace. So basically, if things don't work out between the two of you, you will still have to see your ex in the workplace, and it's not such a good thing. It can lead to poor performance because you're always distracted, you keep on thinking about negative things, or you can't concentrate because you know that at some point you're going to meet your ex somewhere in the workplace, especially if you're just on the same floor, even same team maybe, or even if you are on different floors but still same company, you run the risk of running into that person. And aside from that, aside from it can lead to poor performance, it can also lead to increased absences because sometimes you just tend to want to avoid your ex, that you don't want to go to work anymore because you just don't want to see him or her. And it doesn't just affect you as an employee, it also affects your team, it also affects the entire company as well. Maybe sometimes you'll be late or you'll be absent just because you're trying to avoid that person. And then number three, for me, and the last one, is that you know, when you are working in the same place, that almost everyone or almost all people will know about your relationship, and it doesn't help with your relationship's growth. And when you do break up or when you decide to end that relationship, that's something that you and your partner share. All of a sudden that will become everybody's business, even though it's not their business. So it's just sad and it goes bad because, you know, rumors and gossips in the workplace, they're like gremlins. They're like Lactobacillus shirata strain. They spread like wildfire. They spread like virus. So when you break up now, after a few seconds, it goes, you know, it goes to the entire floor. The news is out. The news just broke out and everybody just knows it. And you will feel like you are deprived of that privacy that you deserve just because some other people feel like they deserve to know what happened to you just because they are your teammates or they are in the same company. So that makes it bad in the end. One last thing is that can lead to one person quitting. So if that person or one party cannot stand being in the company of that ex anymore, then that person may just opt to quit or to resign from the job. Good thing if he or she resigns, right? So what if AWOL, or absence without official leave? So then again, it can affect not just you, but your team and the entire company. And that's when it gets really, really bad. Now, the ugly part is something that may rarely happen, but that doesn't mean that it can't happen. If something will go wrong, it will go wrong. And one of these is a sexual harassment claim. And it can even lead to possible legal consequences. So I'm saying that this is the ugly part because of the legal consequences, and that sexual harassment in the workplace is something that is probably often misunderstood, or people don't always see it happening even though it's already happening. For example, if the other party wants to end the relationship and the other party doesn't want to end it, so it can get complicated, right? And then another thing, and very common, is the supervisor and subordinate relationship. So different people have different opinions about that. A lot of businesses or companies have their own dating policies or policies about relationships in the workplace. But that can be really risky because aside from it can have a possible legal consequence, it can also affect the environment of the team because, number one, for example, favoritism or perks. So instead of reprimanding that subordinate in a professional manner, sometimes it tends to be more of a personal issue now, which is not healthy. And if that's the case, some team members may find that it's not proper, so it generally affects the performance of the entire team. Now, with sexual harassment, it can be somehow hard to prove. I'm not a lawyer or anything, but I think that it comes down to your word against the word of the other person. So even though both of you consented to that relationship, once it ends or once one person decides to end it, there is a possible sexual harassment claim because the other person or the subordinate may feel pressured to go to work or to continue the job for the fear of losing his or her own job or having a low performance rating. So it can come down to that, and it can get really ugly. It doesn't just affect your morale as a person, but it also affects that of your team. And another ugly thing is that that person you are dating may already be in a committed relationship. It's very hard to control that in the workplace because you know how it is when you and that person are always in the same place, you're always together, so there is a chance that relationships may develop. But if you find out that that person you're dating is in a relationship, then it can be really embarrassing and it can be very complicated because you have already invested your feelings and your emotions. Well, I do hope you did not know, but if you knew that that person you're dating is in a relationship and you decided to be in that relationship too, then how, you know how complicated it can get. So you might not be the one, you might not be the second or the third. So we don't really know, and it can also have legal consequences in the future. And lastly is romance gone wrong in the workplace. Some romances in the workplace or relationships in the workplace can sometimes lead to violence. Now, don't say that I'm exaggerating because I've seen this happen. Violence in the workplace because of relationships in the workplace. And you know how it can get ugly because someone and people, get hurt in the process, not just emotionally, but also physically. And eventually you risk your job in the process. You can lose your job because of it. I guess what I can say is that if you're already in that relationship in the workplace, then I hope you can find ways to manage that relationship so that it will be successful for both of you and it's not going to be a disadvantage to both of you and to anyone in the workplace. And if you are still thinking of getting into that relationship in the workplace, you are already an adult, and I guess what I can say is that you can weigh the good stuff versus the bad and the ugly stuff and think it through before jumping into that relationship. I know, again, I'm not in the position to tell you what you want to do with your life or what you want to do with your relationship, but if you want a smooth sailing relationship or love life, then might as well think it through first before risking it. And I guess you just have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it worth the risk? Or is it worth fighting for? Is that love worth fighting for? And, I guess only you can answer those questions for yourself. And if you do decide to get into that relationship, then as what I mentioned earlier, both of you can talk about it, and you can talk about the ways and how to manage that relationship so that it's going to be an advantage for both of you as well. And that's about it for today, ninjas. Thank you so much for watching. So my question for you now is, do you think it is worth it to have a relationship in the workplace? So I'm very curious. If you want to answer that question, just comment down below. Now, if you want to know more call center survival tips as well as real stories, then please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just click on the red subscribe button down below. Or if you're watching this on Facebook, I'm going to link my YouTube channel as well. Thank you so much for watching once again, and see you next Friday. Happy Valentine's, whether you're single or in a relationship. Bye-bye.